Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. We'd love to get our magnifying glasses out and really scrutinize the research that's shaping the future of eye care.
Absolutely. Got to stay on top of things, right?
Well, today we are focusing on a study that I think is really going to make you see things in a new light, pun intended.
Ooh, I like that.
It's all about Chinese eye exercises and their effectiveness against myopia. We're going to be dissecting a fascinating study from the BMC Complementary Medicine and Therapies Journal.
This is a topic that's been generating a lot of buzz lately.
Yeah, and for good reason. I mean, we know that myopia is a global epidemic, and
Yeah.
we're always searching for new ways to prevent it and manage it. And these eye exercises have been a part of Chinese culture for decades.
It's almost like a cultural prescription for better vision passed down through generations.
Right, and it's so interesting to see how these traditional practices intersect with modern science.
That's exactly what this study tries to do. It takes a hard look at whether those daily eye exercises actually make a difference.
Yeah, get down to the nitty-gritty, like, do they really work?
Well, the results may surprise you.
All right, so before we spill the beans, let's set the stage a bit. We've got a lot of savvy eye care professionals listening in, so let's break down the study's methodology and really see what they did.
All right, so this study was conducted in rural China, and they followed over 19,000 children for 2 years.
Wow, that's a massive sample size.
It is, which gives the study a lot of statistical power. The researchers were specifically interested in children with myopia and whose vision could be corrected with eyeglasses. They wanted to see if those who diligently did their eye exercises had any improvement in their vision compared to those who didn't.
So they were looking at kids who already had myopia, not trying to prevent it in this case.
Correct. They wanted to see if the exercises could improve visual acuity in children who are already myopic.
Got it. Okay, so we've got our participants now. How did they go about measuring the effectiveness of these eye exercises?
Well, they used a technique called propensity-score matching.
Okay, now I know that can sound a bit intimidating to some of our listeners, so can you break that down for us in plain English?
Of course, think of it like this. Imagine you have two groups of kids, those who do the eye exercises and those who don't. Propensity score matching helps make sure that those two groups are as similar as possible in all other aspects except for their participation in the exercises.
So it's like creating a level playing field, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were controlling for things like age, gender, initial refractive error, time spent on near-work activities, time spent outdoors, even family history of eyeglass use.
Wow, they really covered all their bases.
They did. They wanted to make sure that any differences in vision they observed could be attributed to the eye exercises themselves and not some other factor.
Talk about thoroughness.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they've got this massive sample size they've carefully controlled for all these different variables. They followed these kids for 2 years now, for the moment of truth. What did they find? Did those eye exercises live up to the hype?
Well, that's where things get interesting. Drum roll, please.
Uh-huh. All right, I'm on the edge of my seat.
The study found no significant difference in visual acuity changes between the group who did the eye exercises and the group who didn't.
So all that meticulous research, and it turns out the eye exercises didn't actually move the needle on visual acuity.
It seems that way.
Wow, that's a pretty significant finding. It definitely challenges a long-held belief.
It does, and I think it highlights the importance of questioning even those practices that have been around for a long time and have become deeply ingrained in a culture.
It's all about looking at the evidence,
Yeah.
right? Even when it challenges what we've always thought.
Exactly. We have to be willing to adapt our thinking as new research emerges.
Absolutely. I think our listeners are probably scribbling down notes right now thinking, maybe I need to reevaluate how I talk to my patients about these exercises.
It's definitely something to consider.
So now that we've dropped this bombshell, I'm curious to get your perspective on why these eye exercises have persisted for so long, despite the lack of clear scientific backing.
Well, I think it speaks to the power of cultural beliefs and traditions. These exercises have been passed down through generations, often with anecdotal evidence supporting their effectiveness. They're even integrated into school curriculums in China.
So it's become almost like a ritual, a part of everyday life.
Exactly. And when something is that deeply ingrained, it can be hard to shake, even in the face of contradictory evidence.
It's a fascinating intersection of culture and science, isn't it?
It really is, and it's something we need to be mindful of as eye care professionals.
Absolutely. We have a responsibility to stay up to date on the research and provide our patients with the most accurate information, even when it challenges long-held beliefs.
But we also need to do it with sensitivity and respect for our patients' cultural backgrounds.
That's a crucial point. It's not about dismissing those beliefs. It's about engaging in a dialogue and helping our patients understand the evidence.
Right. It's about finding that balance between cultural sensitivity and evidence-based practice.
It's about empowering our patients to make informed decisions about their eye health, armed with the best information available.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so we've talked about the big picture now. Let's zoom back in on the study itself. I know our listeners are eager to hear more about the nitty-gritty details of how they carried out this research.
Absolutely. Let's dive into the specifics.
So from that initial 19,000 children, they narrowed it down to 2,374 children who had myopia and whose vision could be corrected with eyeglasses.
Right, and their average age was around 10 and a half years old.
Okay, so still a pretty substantial group.
Oh, definitely. And these children were followed for 21 months. During this time, they were asked about their adherence to the eye exercises, specifically if they were doing them daily.
So they were tracking their vision changes over almost 2 years and also monitoring their eye exercise habits. And I'm assuming they also documented whether or not the children were wearing glasses during this period.
You're very thorough in their data collection.
Now, you mentioned propensity score matching earlier. Can we unpack that a bit more for our listeners who might not be familiar with this statistical technique?
Sure. So propensity score matching is a way to statistically adjust for differences between the two groups, those who did the eye exercises and those who didn't.
So it's like you said before, it's all about creating that level playing field.
Exactly. It ensures that any differences we see in vision between the two groups can be attributed to the eye exercises themselves and not to some other pre-existing difference between the groups.
So it's a way to isolate the effect of the exercises and rule out other potential explanations.
Exactly.
Okay, so they meticulously controlled for various factors, followed these kids for nearly 2 years, and used sophisticated statistical methods to analyze the data. But even with all that, the eye exercises didn't seem to make a significant difference.
Nope.
That's a pretty powerful statement, wouldn't you say?
It is, and it really underscores the importance of relying on evidence-based practice, even when it challenges long-held beliefs.
Right? Just because something's been done for a long time doesn't necessarily mean it works.
Exactly. We have to constantly question our assumptions and be open to new evidence.
Well said. And I think this study really raises some important questions about how we, as eye care professionals, approach patient counseling, especially within communities where these eye exercises are so deeply ingrained.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balance between respecting cultural traditions and presenting the most up-to-date scientific evidence.
It requires us to be skilled communicators, able to explain complex research findings in a clear and empathetic way.
Well said, and I think it also highlights the importance of building trust with our patients so that they feel comfortable discussing these sensitive topics.
Absolutely. Trust is paramount.
It is.
And speaking of trust, I want to be transparent with our listeners and remind everyone that a link to the full study is in the description. It's definitely worth a read for a deeper dive into all the details.
It's eye-opening.
Oh, I see what you did there. Very clever. But seriously, folks, check out the study. It's packed with fascinating insights.
And we'll be back in our next segment to discuss the implications of these findings and explore some alternative strategies for myopia management.
Stay tuned, folks. The conversation's just getting started.
So where do we go from here? How do we take these findings and translate them into practical advice for our patients?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
How do we reconcile these seemingly conflicting perspectives where you've got this deep-rooted cultural belief in the effectiveness of eye exercises butting up against this growing body of scientific evidence that says, not so much.
Right. And it's a sensitive topic, too. We don't want to come across as dismissive or disrespectful of our patients' cultural beliefs.
Absolutely. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to provide them with evidence-based guidance, right?
Exactly. So it's a delicate balance, but I think it all comes down to communication, honest communication.
I think you're spot on there. It's about having those conversations with empathy and understanding, really listening to our patients' concerns and validating their experiences.
Yeah, and being upfront about the research, explaining that while the evidence doesn't support the use of eye exercises for myopia control, there are other strategies that have been proven to be effective.
And that's a key point, right? It's not enough to just debunk the myth of eye exercises. We need to offer alternatives. We need to give our patients something else to grasp onto.
Exactly. And luckily, there are some really promising alternatives out there.
So let's talk about those. What does the research tell us actually works when it comes to myopia management?
Well, one of the most effective strategies we have is increasing outdoor time, especially for children. Studies have consistently shown that spending more time outdoors can significantly reduce the risk of myopia development and progression.
That's interesting. So it's not just about limiting screen time or near work. It's about actually getting outside.
Right. It seems like sunlight plays a crucial role in regulating eye growth and development.
Fascinating. So getting those kids out in the sunshine is key.
It's a good starting point for sure. And in addition to lifestyle modifications like increasing outdoor time, we also have some pharmaceutical interventions that can be helpful.
Like what?
Well, low-dose atropine eye drops have shown a lot of promise in slowing down myopia progression.
I've heard about those. How do they work exactly?
It's not entirely clear, but it seems like atropine can temporarily inhibit eye growth, which helps prevent the eyeball from elongating too much.
So it's like putting the brakes on myopia progression.
Sort of, it helps slow things down.
That's pretty amazing. And what about those special contact lenses I've been hearing about? Are those legit?
Yeah, those are called multifocal contact lenses or myopia control lenses, and they've also been shown to be effective in slowing myopia progression.
How do those work?
Well, unlike traditional contact lenses, which just correct vision in the center of the eye, multifocal lenses have different zones of focus. This can help reduce the strain on the eye and may also influence eye growth in a way that slows down myopia.
It's like giving the eye a workout, but in a good way.
Exactly, and there's even research being done on special spectacles that can help reduce eye strain and potentially slow down myopia progression as well.
Wow, it seems like there's a lot of exciting innovation happening in this field,
There is, it's a really dynamic area of research right now.
which makes it even more important for us as eye care professionals to stay on top of the latest developments.
Absolutely. We need to be able to offer our patients the most up-to-date and effective treatment options.
And that takes a commitment to lifelong learning, right?
Definitely, we have to constantly be expanding our knowledge and refining our skills.
Well said. So we've got increased outdoor time, low-dose atropine, multifocal contact lenses, special spectacles. It seems like myopia management is becoming more and more multifaceted.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach anymore.
Right. We have to consider all the angles and tailor our recommendations to each individual patient.
Exactly. It's about taking a holistic approach, considering their age, their lifestyle, their risk factors, and then coming up with a personalized plan.
And that's where our expertise as eye care professionals really comes in.
Right? Absolutely. We're the ones who can put all the pieces together and guide our patients toward the best possible outcomes.
Okay, so before we move on, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the importance of communicating these findings to our patients, especially those who might be hesitant to accept them because of their cultural beliefs.
Right, that's a really important point. We can't just throw the research at them and expect them to change their deeply held beliefs overnight.
So how do we approach these conversations in a way that's both sensitive and effective?
Well, I think the first step is to acknowledge and validate their beliefs. To say something like, I understand that these eye exercises have been a part of your culture for a long time, and I respect that.
Right, meet them where they're at.
Exactly. And then you can gently introduce the scientific evidence, explaining that while the research hasn't found support for the use of eye exercises for myopia control, there are other strategies that have been proven to be effective.
And I think it's important to emphasize that we're all on the same team here, right? We all want what's best for our patients' eye health.
Absolutely. We're all working towards the same goal, even if we might have different ideas about how to get there.
And sometimes it takes a little bit of time and patience to bridge that gap.
It does, but I think it's worth it.
I agree. So we've got to be patient, we've got to be empathetic, and we've got to be clear and concise in our communication.
And most importantly, we've got to be respectful of our patients' beliefs and values.
Absolutely well said. Now, I know this study focused specifically on those traditional Chinese eye exercises, but I'm curious, what about other types of eye exercises or vision therapy techniques? Is there any evidence to support their use in myopia management?
That's a great question, and the answer is it's complicated.
I figured as much.
Haha. There's definitely a lot of interest in vision therapy, and there's some anecdotal evidence to suggest that it might be helpful for certain eye conditions, but the research on its effectiveness for myopia control is still pretty limited.
So it's a bit of a gray area.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's important to be transparent with our patients about that. To say something like, there's not a lot of strong evidence to support the use of vision therapy for myopia control, but some people find it helpful, and it might be worth trying if you're interested.
Right, and I think it's also important to emphasize that vision therapy is not a substitute for other proven myopia management strategies, like increased outdoor time and low-dose atropine.
Absolutely. It's not an either-or situation. It's about using all the tools we have available to us in a way that makes sense for each individual patient.
Well said. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we move on, I want to touch on one of the study's limitations that we haven't discussed yet.
Okay, which one?
Well, the researchers relied on the children's self-reporting. about their adherence to the eye exercises, which, as we all know, can be a bit unreliable.
Right, kids aren't always the best at remembering and accurately reporting what they did or didn't do.
Especially when it comes to something like eye exercises, which, let's face it, aren't exactly the most exciting activity.
So there's a chance that some of the kids in the study might have overestimated how often they were doing the exercises, or might have felt pressured to say they were doing them even if they weren't.
That's human nature, right? We all want to present ourselves in a positive light.
Exactly. So while this study's findings are still very valuable, it's important to keep this limitation in mind.
Right. We should interpret the results with a grain of salt.
A little bit, yeah. And this actually highlights the need for future research that uses more objective measures of eye exercise adherence, like maybe some kind of technology-based tracking system.
That's a great idea. Imagine if we could actually monitor how often kids are doing their eye exercises and for how long.
That would give us much more accurate data and would help us better understand the potential effects of these exercises.
It's an exciting area for future research.
It is, and I think it has the potential to really move the field forward.
Okay, so we've talked about the study's findings, the implications for patient counseling, and even some of the limitations we need to keep in mind. But what about the bigger picture? Where do we go from here as a profession? What are some of the key takeaways from this research that can help shape the future of myopia management?
Well, I think this study really underscores the importance of a paradigm shift in how we approach myopia. It's time to move away from relying solely on traditional methods like eye exercises and embrace a more holistic, evidence-based approach.
So it's about looking beyond those isolated techniques and considering the broader lifestyle factors that contribute to myopia development and progression.
Exactly. We need to be thinking about things like increasing outdoor time, managing near-work activities, and even addressing potential dietary factors that might play a role.
It's about empowering our patients with the knowledge and tools they need to make informed decisions about their eye health.
And it's about collaborating with other healthcare professionals like pediatricians and educators to create a comprehensive approach to myopia prevention and management.
It's a team effort, for sure. We need to work together to change the trajectory of this myopia epidemic and ensure a brighter future for our patients.
And speaking of a brighter future, let's shift our focus to some of the exciting advancements on the horizon. There are some promising new technologies and interventions emerging that have the potential to revolutionize how we manage myopia.
Now, that's what I like to hear. Let's delve into those cutting-edge developments. Because, let's face it, who doesn't love a good dose of scientific optimism? Okay, spill the beans. What are these cutting-edge developments that have you so excited?
Well, one area that's really generating a lot of buzz is low-dose atropine.
Ah, yes, atropine.
Huh?
I've been hearing more and more about this lately, so for our listeners who might not be as familiar with it, can you give us a quick rundown?
Sure. So atropine is a type of eye drop that's been used for a long time to dilate pupils.
Right, for eye exams and stuff.
Exactly. But more recently, researchers have discovered that low doses of atropine can actually help slow down myopia progression in children.
That's fascinating. So how does it work? Does
Yeah.
it, like, magically shrink the eyeball or something?
Not quite. It's not fully understood how it works, but it seems to affect the way the eye grows and develops.
So it's not just about correcting blurry vision.
Mhm.
It's about addressing the underlying structural changes in the eye that lead to myopia.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so exciting. We're moving beyond just treating the symptoms and starting to target the root causes.
Now, that's what I call progress.
Yeah.
So atropine is definitely one to watch, but are there any other cutting-edge interventions on the horizon that we should be keeping an eye on, pun intended, of course?
Of course. Always got to love a good eye pun.
Uh-huh. You know me too well.
Well, in addition to atropine, there are also some innovative contact lens designs that are showing a lot of promise in myopia control.
Oh, yeah. I've heard whispers about these special contact lenses. What makes them so special?
Well, these lenses are designed to create a specific pattern of light on the retina, which can help influence eye growth and slow down myopia progression.
So they're not your average contact lenses.
Nope, they're like little mini myopia fighters.
I love that. So contact lenses are joining the battle against myopia. That's awesome. And what about spectacles? Are there any new developments in that area?
Yeah, actually, there's some really interesting research being done on special spectacles that can help reduce eye strain and potentially slow down myopia progression.
So like special lenses or coatings or something.
Yeah, things like that. Researchers are exploring different designs and technologies to see what works best.
It seems like the future of myopia management is all about innovation and a multi-pronged approach.
It is. It's about combining lifestyle modifications like increased outdoor time with these cutting-edge interventions to create personalized treatment plans that address each patient's unique needs.
Absolutely. So we've got a lot of exciting tools at our disposal now, and as eye care professionals, it's up to us to stay informed about these advancements and be ready to adapt our practices accordingly.
Couldn't agree more. We need to embrace a lifelong learning mindset and be at the forefront of this exciting evolution in myopia management.
It's an exciting time to be in this field. We have the potential to make a real difference in the lives of our patients, helping them preserve their precious vision for years to come.
Absolutely. And it all starts with awareness. The more we understand about myopia, its causes, and the latest advancements in treatment, the better equipped we'll be to guide our patients toward a brighter, clearer future.
Well said. So to all our amazing listeners out there, the eye care champions who are dedicated to providing the best possible care for their patients, keep those minds curious. Keep those eyes peeled for new developments, and keep fighting the good fight against myopia.
You got this.
And on that inspiring note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of eye exercises and myopia. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit eye-opening, haha.
I'll let that one slide.
All right, I couldn't resist. But seriously, folks, we covered a lot of ground today, from debunking myths to exploring cutting-edge treatments, and we want to thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure as always.
Now, before we sign off, I want to remind everyone that a link to the full study we discussed today is in the description. It's definitely worth a read for a deeper dive into all the details.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to follow the podcast and leave us a 5-star rating. It helps us reach more curious minds like yours.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep those eyes healthy.